Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Fed Up, your no BS nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, working with clients since 2014. After swimming up diet culture's bullshit stream for so many years, I am fed the absolute up with how miserable it's making people feel when we are supposed to be getting healthier. This podcast is here to help you gain your sanity back so you can stop yo-yoing once and for all and finally learn how to trust yourself so you can enjoy food again without fear or shame while still getting to your health goals. My aim is to teach you how to detect the BS in not just the food and diet industries, but in all realms of life, because I know that, like me, we are all just a little fed up. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome on back to another episode of Fed Up. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening. So today I wanted to talk about something really near and dear to my heart. And in today's climate with social media, politics, a couple other things, I just really wanted to share why I do the work that I do and zoom out and then zoom back in, and you'll see what I mean by that. One of my professors recently asked, "What does community nutrition mean to you?" And over this past semester, we've talked about policy and programs and education and access to foods. And today I really wanted to share my passion for quote unquote community nutrition with you and just kind of talk at you a little bit about really why I've decided to pursue becoming a real registered dietitian after a decade of personal training. And I have such a passion for teaching people how to eat because over this past decade, I've noticed people are confused. They're miserable. Even people who have access to foods, we have no idea how to eat healthy or what it takes to eat healthy. People are extreme in one way or the other. I've been helping people get fit, lose weight, yet we're never addressing the emotional, educational, the skills-based work, how, quote unquote, to eat healthy, but also actually doing the thing to eat healthy and also addressing stress eating and emotional eating and knowing even how to cook well or how to grocery shop, or there's so much involved in feeding yourself and feeding your family that gets overlooked. And then when you bombard people with marketing and politics that may or may not align with nutritional sciences, we are left with an entire population of people who have an abundance of food and no idea how to manage themselves around it. And I don't want to make this super political, but when you have someone like RFK focusing on food dyes, focusing on encouraging people to cook in beef tallow instead of healthy seed oils, and if you were to switch all the fast food chains to beef tallow, you really think that's going to solve our obesity problem? You just added calories to something that people already overeat and overconsume, and you haven't taught them how to manage portions, how to cook more at home, how to go to a grocery store, how to shop on a budget, whatever it may be. We're wasting so much food in America too. We're throwing away half of our produce. Like, there are so many other issues that our government should be focusing on, and it's food dyes and beef tallow. Then you have a lot of people saying, oh, well, you have to buy organic. So, okay, you have to buy the more expensive stuff to be healthy. And that creates a whole other mess of issues, especially when you have the most vulnerable people of our population who maybe don't have access to a lot of resources to buy super organic, highly expensive for no reason other than the fact that, anyway, that's a different episode. When you have government assistance for SNAP, welfare, there's food banks, you have free lunch at school, right? We have this interesting paradox where the government is providing access to food, which is good. Fed is best, I believe, but yet we are not providing whole foods or better education for how to cook and prepare those whole foods. And it's really tricky to all of a sudden overnight try to remove some of those foods from our system when families have been relying on them for decades. And again, this is a problem that we introduced to things like macaroni and cheese. Maybe it should have been something else, but macaroni and cheese has fed families for decades. And when you try to remove that, who are you affecting? You're affecting families, lower income families, busy moms who want to come home and just cook a quick meal. And fed is best. Fed is best. However, again, we have a little bit of a paradox here. And when you have politics and social media and education in schools that influence how we are navigating the nutritional realm, this is an entire psychological phenomenon that happens when we're talking about feeding yourself, feeding your family, eating food. It is not just the chemicals or the single, artificial food dye that is contributing to any major health crises. I will stand on that hill. RFK is preaching fear. Influencers preach fear because it's polarizing, it gets clicks, it gets views, it gets people riled up, and it also makes you feel like you have something to blame, frankly. That when I'm coaching people and they don't want to address the fact that they're emotionally eating or they're binge eating or they don't have any cooking skills. They don't know how to cook at home. They haven't developed the habit of cooking at home. So they go through the fast food every day, right? Instead of blaming the habits and the structure and the environment and the system that has been put in place, we can blame the canola oil, right? When you put it in that sense, we got to zoom out a little bit is where I'm getting at. And when you are preaching fear, when you are trying to ban specific ingredients, but you're not putting nutrition classes or PE classes back in schools, you have me questioning your motives. This has been a decades-long crusade of trying to get kids to be active and eat healthier, and yet there has been this pushback of school lunches providing ultra-processed, highly fat, highly sugar foods. Yet again, fed is best. So what's the answer here? I don't know. This is kind of why I was saying, bear with me with my little ranty rant here, because I'm not going to pretend I have a solution. However, we do need to understand that nutrition is more than just singular ingredients or singular foods. And you can feed a family on canned foods and still provide good nutrition. But if you don't know how to make a soup, or if you're told that canned beans are the devil and they're not even a true vegetable, then how are you supposed to feel confident in your food choices? I've had people, including my own mother does this. She says, I would rather starve than go and eat, etc., etc. So if she's out and about all day because she doesn't have the habits, the skills, the practice, or the environment, whatever it is, she doesn't have the system put in place in her life to where she's prepping food at home. So she'll go all day without eating because she's out and about being a busy little mom, as she does, and she's doing all these errands. She's at work, but she didn't bring any food with her, but she refuses to eat out. So she's starving all day long. And then when she gets home, she eats her entire kitchen. Or again, it's this kind of back and forth between starving yourself and then binging on McDonald's because you haven't had it in a month and now you smell the French fries and you're starving and you have no idea how to handle yourself around the McDonald's. Is it the McDonald's? Or is it your relationship with McDonald's and with prepping and home cooking and being prepared to feed yourself. America is very strange with not strange, I shouldn't say that. We are a little different than even how our European friends are and around the rest of the world. A lot of food is based on culture, and you sit and you enjoy a social aspect of it. And in America, it's like you eat in your car on the way home, or you're eating in front of the TV, or you're eating really, really fast. Like, I work at a restaurant as a waitress, and when I have European foreigners who are tourists for Yellowstone, they come here and I can tell, they're from France. They're telling me about that. And they're much more, I'm going to take my time. And I'm not going to rush them because I know that they are French and they're going to take their time. And once they pay, that means they're going to leave. So I'm also not going to drop the check early. And when I do drop the check, and if they don't automatically pay, I'm not going to get upset or freak out about that, because I know in Europe, a lot of times when you pay, you have to leave the restaurant. So if you're not ready to leave, you're not going to pay yet. If you don't understand that cultural difference there, you might feel really weird or different when you're trying to slow down food, or when I tell you to have a conversation over dinner and put your food down in between bites so that you can eat slower and you can enjoy your food a little bit more. So you have this weird contrasting advice of food is fuel, just eat. You don't have to enjoy it. It doesn't need to be sweet, doesn't need to be even taste good, right? Just plain bodybuilder style rice and green beans and chicken. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. So instead of social media using their beautiful ability to reach millions of people to encourage culture and love of food and portion control and good nutrition and micronutrients and all of the things that would elevate our understanding of how to feed ourselves and what goes in our body. Instead, it's polarizing. Instead, it's about profit. Instead, it's telling you one thing is bad, because then they're going to tell you what is good and then share a link to purchase that product. So headlines are going to tell you that your food is poison, that you need to eat this one thing or you need to avoid one thing because that's what's going to get you to click on it. I'm never going to make millions and millions of dollars in influencer money telling people to have moderation. That doesn't happen. And I will always fight for good nutrition, access to whole and healthy foods, but I also feel it is more so my duty to combat the shame and the fear that people have around food by telling them it's okay to have McDonald's instead of skip lunch. And then maybe what to order at McDonald's, because there is a proper way to eat out. Not proper, I shouldn't say that. That's a bad word to use in terms of nutrition. But in order to get adequate nutrition, in order to balance your intake, McDonald's can fit, frankly. But of course, having McDonald's every day or for all of your meals every day probably doesn't provide all of the adequate nutrition you need. So again, there is nuance here, and I will never make $1 million preaching nuance. So I kind of joke that I'm getting my licensure. I'm trying to be a registered dietitian to give me the scope of practice, to give me the credibility. But also, as a dietitian, I still don't think that I'm going to be prescribing meal plans, because if you don't learn how to eat without a plan, then you're not going to really learn how to eat unless you have someone telling you exactly how to eat. And it's not helpful because, frankly, the point of nutrition is to be able to be nuanced, flexible, enjoyable, and nutritious. And who am I to tell you exactly what that looks like for you? I live a different life than you. I have different preferences than you. I have different food, cultural backgrounds and exposures than you. There are thousands of foods in this world that I've never even heard of. There are hundreds of foods that I didn't hear of until I was 25 and started working in a restaurant. I was like, I don't know what fennel is. I don't know what this fish is. I've never had eggplant before. There's a lot of foods that I never had growing up. Who am I to tell you how to eat? Who am I? So even though as a registered dietitian, I could tell you exactly what to eat, which if there's a clinical reason, there's a difference, right? If I'm prescribing what goes in a feeding tube or how to feed your child who has a autoimmune disorder or diabetes, like there's a difference in that type of clinical prescription versus telling someone meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, right? No, I want you to explore food with all of the joy it is supposed to have. Food is more than fuel. It's love. It's culture. Cooking for your loved ones is an act of service. Feeding the poor is one of charity's most important work, right? Food is tied to memories, like grandma's chocolate cookies. I started a mini bakery hobby business last summer. I know I'm all over the place, but I love baking. I always have. So I learned how to bake cakes from scratch and decorate them, and they're beautiful, and I love it. And when I started to ask my friends, my coworkers, what their favorite cake was, the pure joy on people's faces when describing like the best chocolate cake my mom made me every year for my birthday growing up, it's beautiful. My partner was a chef for over a decade, and when I cook for him, I would be like a little intimidated, I'm like, how is it? Is it bad? I just cook at home. Like, I don't know any professional type of cooking. And he finally told me, no one ever cooks for me. The best thing for a chef is to have someone give them hot food, to have someone cook for them. And my boyfriend says, like, since he was as an adult, no one's cooked for him. I love looking at his face and being like, all right, how is it? And I get such a rush from that because for me, it is an act of service. It's an act of love. Even when it uses butter and sugar and food coloring and we smother it in gravy, like food is more than just singular ingredients. And yes, we need our proteins, our fiber, our vitamins, but we also need social bonding. We need humans' innate desire to eat good food. And we like to stand over an open flame and smell dinner. Food is a universal language, and humans are the only animals who have learned to control it. So yes, maybe we manufactured too hard, and cereal tastes better and sweeter than it ever should have been for a breakfast food, but here it is. And now we just have to learn how to feed ourselves with the food that we have that's never existed before. It's not that it's poison, it's just that we got really excited when we learned how to put sugar in things. And that's really my mission, is to reduce the fear, reduce the shame so that our communities can eat better, regardless of what they have access to, because that's not going to change overnight. And that's why I have this podcast, because hopefully it finds the right people and it's a free resource so that you can listen and not feel like I'm just yelling at you for all the things that are poisonous in the grocery store. I'm sure you hear so much of that from somebody named Bobby. And don't download his freaking app because it's just going to make you feel like you can't eat anything. And then you eat like crap. So that's what we're here to change. So that we can actually feel good about what we're eating, whether it's homemade chocolate chip cookies or store-bought chocolate chip cookies. And being able to enjoy 1 or 2 or even 3 and not eat the whole package or feel so bad and restrictive that we end up developing an eating disorder, right? Like this extends so much more than food dyes. But if someone would like to tell RFK, that would be great. And that's where I'll end this. So I hope this just helped expand your thoughts maybe about what it means to actually be healthy and what we should be focusing on. And if you have the power in your own community to help destigmatize some of this, that would be great too. I find it so common in our conversations to just say, oh, that's so bad for you, or oh, that's so toxic, or oh, potatoes produce a chemical that's Stop that nonsense, all right? And let's just enjoy food without the extremes. All righty. So, anyway, top of the day to ya. Hope you have a lovely one. I will chat at you next week. See ya. Thanks so much for being here, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and tag me over on Instagram or leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening from. Your support means the world to me and only helps me get the no BS news out to more people. If you're interested in working with me in nutrition or personal training, check out my programs and courses on my website at kaylamariefitness.com and on Instagram at kaylamari_fit. See you next week.